Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Kayak Fishing Weekly, show here on the Serious Angler Podcast Network that's dedicated to everything kayak bass fishing. Well, I shouldn't even say bass fishing, just kayak fishing in general. Obviously, Justin and I are a little biased here, but
A
my
lot
counterpart
biased.
here, yeah, a lot biased, Mr. Justin Largen, and I am Bailey Egbert, and we are back with a little post-Christmas episode. And Justin, how was your holiday? How was the time with family? Tell us how
Oh,
it all went.
always awesome. I did not get a chance to see everybody yet, so we had some of my siblings, their kids, my nieces are sick, so we haven't gotten
Mm.
everybody in town together yet. But it's supposed to happen in a couple days once everybody's well. But for everybody that I did see, it was fun. And then of course I ate way too much junk. I have I've probably put on another 10 pounds. Just cookies. Oh, my mom and my sisters make the best Christmas cookies, so I've been absolutely just devouring those.
Yeah, I can relate to that, man. It's been a heavy week of cookies for sure, and then some beers with family over and things like that. And I was telling you a little bit offline uh, from the serious angler standpoint, but also like even I feel bad. Kayak Fishing Weekly's kind of been on the back burner social media wise. Haven't been posting every day, but I've been taking like the social media, even really technology ish hiatus for the past week or so. Really, because it's just been running and gunning all year long, even from probably goes back to 2 years ago, putting out either a video or episode every single week, posting at least twice a week. And I'm just like, I want to be recharged for 2024. So I kind of just took a break from it a little bit, got the podcast obviously in, but because those are genuinely, I don't look at those as posting content and things like that because it's you and I talking fishing and like it's something that I
Mhm.
simply enjoy to do. But I just kind of needed a break from it. No YouTube videos, no social media posting, and uh, of course, my pops. He for those who don't know, my family is all in Florida. My brother moved out to Utah, so I'm the only one left in New York. So I don't get to see them much beyond talking to my dad or my mom through the phone throughout the week. But something I used to do all the time when I was a kid is my dad bought us, a GameCube and an Xbox and things like that. We play Madden together and such. And uh, he, my parents do well for themselves, and I promise you, I mean, you can call me spoiled by all means, please do, because I definitely appreciate my parents, but they do spoil my brother and I. And they got us both PS5 so that we could play Call of Duty and such with my dad and my brother at the same time and like talk over the mic and everything like that versus just get on a phone call and you're just chatting. It's now we can go and play Fortnite and Call of Duty and stuff like that
Yeah,
together, you know. So
I
it's
rem I remember those days. It really is. I don't know, it's not something, it's not the same as being in person, but it's like you're just doing, like, having that shared activity makes it fun. God, I
yeah,
I used to play so much Halo and Call of Duty.
dude.
It's
Yeah.
so much more fun when you're actually talking to a buddy and you're not just, like, sitting there solo mode, in your own little world.
Yeah, dude, it was that was part of my childhood, man. Like, I would go to school and I'd go to hockey practice, and after our hockey practice would be like almost 3 to 4 hours because we'd have off ice training, on ice training, and I'd be with my buddies, and then we'd get home, especially if it was like a Friday, we'd get home and hop right on Call of Duty, play, till like 1 to 2 in the morning, get in trouble with the parents, staying up too late type of deal. That was like my dang childhood. So, of course, I set it all up and everything, and my wife had to. She's been having to work since the day after Christmas, and so she's not feeling well today too. She stayed home, so of course I'm sitting here. I'm off of work. I'm taking the social media hiatus, so I'm besides the podcast stuff. Like I don't have much to do besides some small, things for sponsors getting ready for next year. So I've just been I've been binging Call of Duty and such, and it's just been beers, cookies, and video games. So I've been definitely the epitome of lazy this week.
Sounds
But
like
it
a
feels
heck of
good,
a
man.
party.
Like, it's getting me charged up for next week.
Awesome.
But
Yeah, you gotta do that recharge every once in a while. And I
yeah.
don't think you're the only one. I noticed there were a lot of people that were doing something similar. There's a whole lot less fishing stuff out there on social media this past few days.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't you tell me that I couldn't even notice just because I haven't been on. You know what I mean? Like, it's just one of those things where it kinda feels good to be away from it. As much as I love it, and I love that networking and the community out there, it's something I need to get away from every now and then just to get recharged. Because it's like when you're running gun for so long, the last thing I wanna do is get burnout, and burnout, I feel like, lasts a lot longer than a simple week break. A week break can just be so good mentally, and like I was telling you offline, I've always avoided a break or tried to avoid a break just for the pure fact that I feel like if I don't put out content, then, like, everyone that listens or everyone that watches is never gonna ever watch or listen again because 'cause they're not consistent, and
The
it's,
mighty algorithm drops you.
yeah, it's like, like that it's just this weird mentality I guess I have. Like, it was the same thing, like, growing up, being an athlete and everything like that is like if I would feel guilty if I didn't go train or go to the gym that day. Like, if I didn't go every single day, then I'm falling behind. It was like kind of one of those things where it's if it's a and I have it still now where it's like if there's a morning where I'm not working, not doing anything, if I'm not out trying to learn something on the water, I feel guilty for not going. Whereas I maybe a week or a morning on the couch being lazy, it might be needed, but instead I go and extend myself, and it's a bad habit, honestly, but it, it's interesting, the human dynamic. But
Mhm.
nonetheless, I don't think people really care to hear that on this show of us ranting about it. More me ranting, but, dude, good to hear that, Christmas as well, family came up. Hopefully, you get to see the nieces once they're feeling better, but, before we get into some of our news, I guess it really is kickstarting our news, is, you started something over
I
the holiday.
did. I finally sort of took the plunge and started the YouTube channel. We had Christine on not that long ago, and she was talking about, just get out there, and I was like, "You know what? I need to do that." I've been thinking about it for a long time. It's been at least 5 years, maybe more than that when I bought a GoPro and, um, I mess around with it a little bit, but I never posted stuff. I think I was self-conscious, and, I was digging around the other day and found some old footage, not much, but, yeah, I finally just decided to kind of take the plunge and put some stuff out there. I post a lot on Instagram, and I think I'm gonna start with just doing a lot of little tips and trick videos that the stuff that I'm posting, sharing on Instagram anyway. But I'm kind of excited because the it's a different format. You've been doing the YouTube game a while, and it's longer form, so you can get into a subject and talk for a long time, and it's not just a like let me figure out how I can cram a tip into 30 seconds. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to kind of get into that side of it and just really go down the rabbit hole on topics, even if it is just
It's
me
fun,
talking to
man.
myself.
Yeah, no, dude, it's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it, especially the different forms of content and things you can do, and um, the work put in is definitely worth it if you enjoy cataloging your trips. Like even if I had 0 subs, I'd still post videos just for the pure fact I like to look back on some stuff. Like the other night, I was going through some sponsor emails, things like that, and I was just watching one of my state championship videos from back, in September and kinda, like, reliving it. It was pretty cool. Just I do that all the
Nice.
time and just kinda, like, because I think sometimes I see things that I haven't noticed before or something like there was a clip from state championships where I'm literally flipping grass, catch a largemouth, flip it in the boat, and I'm paying attention to getting that largemouth unhooked and measured, that I don't see the muskie that comes up near my boat with its head out of the water, trying to see what all the commotion's about with that bass. I never noticed it until I went back through the GoPro footage. Uh, it was super cool. Like, I'm like, wait a second, rewind. What was that? It was super cool, man. So that's why I love if you're able to always run a GoPro because you get to see some wild stuff. Whether you want to post on YouTube or not, like I just encourage everybody to do it because one, it's just cool stuff to show family and friends, and from a tournament standpoint, you know, with people that like to throw accusations out there when someone's doing well and they're not, it's a great way to defend yourself and have
Yeah.
evidence for and
COIA,
against.
definitely.
Yeah, for sure,
Yeah,
man.
see, here's cast to catch. Look, I caught this fish. I
Mhm.
didn't unhook it off a stringer somewhere or, whatever other way people accuse you of cheating. But the
Yeah,
other part of it, kind of like what you said, and something Christine had mentioned also was the like sort of analyzing yourself, almost like watching back the tape if
mhm.
on Monday morning for a football coach. Like I have some of my old stuff. I'm watching the video. I'm like, man, that was a really crappy hook set. Or man, what am I doing? Why am I playing with that fish along the boat for so long? I should have got that fish in quicker. even when I found I just had so much clutter in the kayak. I was like, oh my gosh, how do they even fish like that? I literally was taking like a one of those 20 or 30 liter waterproof bags, just stuffing it full of soft plastics. And then I just had them like dumped at my feet, spread everywhere, like covering the floor. And I'm looking at that like that was so dumb. Like, why why did I
Yeah.
do that? But
Why did I do this?
it's so yeah, the tournament fishing over the last few years has helped me erase some of those habits,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to watching tape on some of the stuff that I do.
Heck yeah, man. Yeah, there was an instance, for example, here. One of the first ever kayak tournaments that I won in New York. It was at Cayuga, one of my home lakes, and there was literally the tournament starts at 7 in the morning, and unbeknownst to me, obviously at the time looking back, I had it won by 7:30. But I caught 3:19 and a half. This is back when New York kayak bass fishing was a 3 fish limit, which I went on to
Okay.
actually not like the 3 fish stuff, and I took a hiatus from that until they changed it to 5 fish, and then I got back into it. I don't know why, I just hated the 3 fish. That's a whole other discussion topic for another show. But I had 3:19 and a halves by 7:30 and had them submitted and everything. And apparently some guy was trying to call me out for cheating, saying that there's no way I caught those all that quick, whatever. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Like a tournament director told me at the end, he's like, hey, just let you know somebody was throwing that out there. I'm like, that's fine. Tell them to watch the YouTube video next week. Like, all right there.
I didn't even cut.
Yeah, that's right. I'll just put the whole 30 minutes in there for you, you chump. But nonetheless, man, I'm excited that you're doing it. And we'll leave a link down below for you guys, whether you're listening or you're watching, so you guys can go click and subscribe to Justin's YouTube channel. Highly encourage you to. Got some great tips. Your recent Carolina rig tip is one I already installed. I'm
Have you?
taking that. I'm taking that because that's pretty clutch. But encourage you guys to do so. Links down below. And there's been some more things arising, of course. Right now, you can. We'll leave a link in the show as well to the signups for Hobie BOS. The Harris Chain and Sam Rayburn are live, so you can go get signed up. We're going to get into some Hobie rule changes here in a second. But something interesting, Justin, is I have these pulled up each tournament, and right now, because we know, was it 2 years ago, there was the craze over these tournaments where if you weren't signed up in the first 10 minutes, you weren't getting into these tournaments. Uh,
Yeah.
as of the 27th of December, Harris Chain is at only 65 anglers, and Sam Rayburn is at 14. Granted, obviously Rayburn's a little bit farther out, but I would have expected a lot more anglers for that, for Harris Chain signed up by now.
Yeah, we still got a month. And I think at least what I noticed, especially last year when there wasn't, like you mentioned, that craze, there were a lot of last minute signups.
Yeah.
Um, so you know, I get it. You're working and you're trying to figure out, hey, am I going to be able to get this weekend off or get an extra day off this week? And you don't find out until the Tuesday before, and you sign up last minute. Hey, I mean, the more the merrier. I think that allowing people to sign up later is one of the cool things that Hobie's doing for this coming year. If I remember right, they increased the entry fee a little bit if you are past a certain point, but given guys that maybe they're trying to make the logistics work and they're scrambling and they don't figure it out till last minute, I like that they can still get in.
Yeah. It's interesting. So with that, let's roll into some of the new rule changes. Obviously, the big one that people have seen so far is they're allowing motors for events, but there's an asterisk on that. Can you roll through the bigger changes that we were discussing here a little bit offline?
Yeah, the motors. That's like you said, the big one. It's a change from what Hobie used to do. The thing that made them different from everybody else was it was man powered only, but they are keeping two events, and I believe it is Lake Norman and then Wright Pittman, if I'm saying that right, the Texas tournament. They're going to keep those two events as paddle only. So for those of us that like that old way, and you can use motors in practice, but for competition, you're pedaling, paddling, or push pulling. We've still got a couple, but then I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most anglers out there like motors or the tournament anglers. It's almost a requirement anymore that you have one, and I think that it's by doing that, Hobie's going to open up the door for a lot of people that maybe didn't fish it specifically because they like using their motor.
Yeah. So to start this off, I want to say that I'm indifferent about it because I could care less. I think from a tournament standpoint, like I think if you're an angler that just has confidence in your abilities, you don't you don't care if you're told motor or not motor, you're going to fish that event one way or another. It's not really going to affect your game plan all that much. I love the motors during practice because you get to save your legs for a 2-day event, especially if you expect
Yes.
that you're going to be making a haul. Um, so I just want to put that out there. It's like I think this is great. I think it's going to get some people to uh, fish the events that wouldn't fish it before. But I will also be a critic of it, and really not even against Hobie here or against Hobie BOS here, because obviously one they're trying to get more people that'll sign up that haven't fished their events before, and obviously they got to compete with people trying to fish Bassmaster. I'm not saying that the trails are directly going head to head, but some person might decide they're going to fish only Bassmaster because they allow motors versus where Hobie BOS in the past hasn't. Um, so there is some keeping up with that from a industry standpoint. But my thing, and this is my only pet peeve, and I don't want this to come off wrong, but I just
Uh-oh.
it yeah this is something I just it's on my mind like when I think about this. And I'm not saying this is correct. This is simply just an opinion. And I, by all means, if somebody disagrees, please tell me. And I will say there's an exception to the rule of my point here, which I'll get into, is if your decision is to fish a kayak tournament only because they do or do not allow a motor, you probably shouldn't be fishing kayak fishing tournaments. Like I just think that if that's your only indication, because if there's a kayak tournament and you have a pro angler and you're not going to fish it because it doesn't allow a motor, I just don't think you're in it for the right reason. I don't know. I just think that there's a weird like it's like that line, the line that I hate as a kayak angler is just get a boat at that point. It's just like I don't know. It just kind of feels weird to me. Like if you want to go and you don't want to fish a Hobie BOS tournament because they don't allow a motor. Now I understand if people have like shoulder problems or leg problems, things like that, that make it very difficult to pedal or paddle. Totally understand that. Will never ever knock that. Um,
That's the most convincing argument that I've heard for in favor of introducing motors is, the guys that, you've got some sort of ailment or you just physically it's really difficult for you to go for a long 2-day or 3-day tournament. And
yeah,
I agree. I totally get it. I'm getting older myself. I can feel myself every year. The knees start to creak a little more. And I want to be able to do it for as long as possible.
yeah, and again, this is me being critical. Like I am nitpicky, critical here. This is more of like a and it's ironic that I'm talking about me taking my lazy week here and I'm going after the lazy at this point. But I'm just saying, like, I just think that's I don't know, man. And then maybe it's just one of those deals where it's like, if someone they're in that boat of they're not gonna fish a kayak tournament because it doesn't allow a motor, I mean, means that you probably already got them beat anyways. It's just kind of one of those deals where I just think it's a weak mindset. Like you're just not gonna fish it because you have to put in physical effort. Like, I don't know, it just kind of seems lame to me. I'll leave it at that. I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing. It's just one of the things that popped in my mind when I thought about this rule. But overall, I think it's a good thing because if all trails are allowing it, and sport like Newport and Torquedo are doing great things for kayak anglers, I think it's good. I think it's good
Yeah.
overall. I just think from a tournament angler mindset, if that is the only thing stopping you, uh, you probably should just stick to fun fishing.
Yeah. And if I had to kind of play devil's advocate, like you were saying, I'll miss that no motor aspect just because it added some variety. It was something that was a little different and it
Athleticism.
yeah, I'm not saying I'm in great shape, but I felt like I was one of the people that, for whether it was smart or dumb, like I'm willing sometimes to go really far in a day, longer than a lot of people will go. I'll go 5 miles to a starting spot. And I feel like that strategy of just doing something that's physically exhausting to try to outwork other people and get to a spot maybe that you'll have to yourself. I think
Mhm.
that aspect of it's gone. You can still make a long run with a
Yeah.
motor, but there's no more. I'm just gonna out. I'm not saying there's no more, but it's because Drew Gregory still might paddle further than I'll take
Yeah.
my
Who
motor.
knows, man?
But but I think it changes a little bit, and I'll miss that aspect of it. But again, Hobie's given us a couple of tournaments where it's still going to be, you know, motor free. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
gotta
they're
second that. Like, it's the whole aspect of I'm not sitting here trying to call myself athletic, but I definitely like, if people have seen me or hung out with me or have kayak fished with me, they know I have somewhat of a thigh advantage. I have these big old thunder thighs that puts a pro angler on plane. Like,
all that skating.
yeah, it's all that hockey training back in the day, but, like, that was one thing I always felt like I had an advantage because for whatever reason, I could get the pro angler going fast and consistent. Obviously, if somebody's got an Outback or something, they could burn me, but I don't
I
know.
don't
There was
know.
just
I
multiple
don't know.
instances where I could beat people in a race from that, and it definitely is like I'm not saying I liked the racing aspect. I certainly appreciated the mornings where you get to chill and just go to your spot, and
You're
I got
the only
thinking
guy
about,
at the
like,
ramp.
yeah, or that, or it's like, I look back at, like, Lake Eufaula with Brady. Him and I were in the only area. He got 4th. I obviously the one I won, and it was like, we acknowledged on day 2 that we're going back to the same spot, so there was no racing where, like, we had our spots within the spot. We were gonna respect each other's space, and we just took our time, chatted with each other the whole way.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely appreciate those, but there is an aspect to especially those day 1 races, you know what I mean? Where it was kinda fun, but
Yeah.
yeah, long we're beating a dead horse at this point,
Yeah.
but, curious what you guys think. Let us know in the comments if you have any opinion which way or not. Feel free to rebuttal. I'm all for debate, mature and controlled debate, we'll say. But yeah, interesting stuff with Hobie. Will be interesting to see how it impacts signups for this year and how certain events go. But I think all in all, good for sport.
Oh, the TOC thing. Do you want to jump on that too, or?
Yeah, yeah. Lay that out there because I still don't even know if I fully understand it yet.
Yeah, me either. So I was going through the rules, so that the 2024 rules are all up, and from what I can tell, it seems like it's streamlined a little bit. I think they're trying to clarify it, make it simpler. And I didn't see anything specific to this in the 2024 rules, but when I went to look at Harris Chain down in the event description, there's a section in there talking about TOC qualification, and I thought that was interesting. Let me see if I can get it here. All right, so I'll read it verbatim. So up to a maximum capacity of 225 anglers will be competing for cash payouts to 15% of the field. There will also be tournament champions qualifier spots earned on a sliding scale of attending anglers, and that's something that I think that's new. So it says for fewer than, the 99 anglers, there's going to be 2 TOC spots. Then for 100 to 149, 3 spots. For 150 to 199 anglers, 4 spots. And for 200 or more, 5 spots earned. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard anybody talk about that yet, but I thought that was kind of interesting. And
So there's what, 9 events?
I think that's right.
So if there's 9 events, say they all max or they're over 200. So then 45 people will get in based off of top 5 for each
Yeah.
event.
And I
So
believe
that's Go ahead.
the field's 65. I think they're keeping the tournament of champions, capped at 65.
That's
So
top 20 AOI.
that's what it would be. But you know, I'm not sure how many events maxed out last year. I think there were a couple
Yeah.
that were
Obviously,
heavy
that's
like
looking
that.
at it from the premise of that they're gonna max out or get over 200 each event, but
And on the
I
flip
just think
side,
that
if it's
sorry, go ahead.
no, no, you.
I just think that method obviously, this is, like, all on the basis of if they get over 200 per event. Um, I just think we should be rewarding the people that hit multiple events and do well in multiple events over someone that does just well in one. You know what I mean? I think and I get, like, I think, getting a top 5 in a 200-person field is impressive and definitely very, very hard to do.
Mhm.
But I feel like the guy that's getting anywhere from 10th to 15th in 4 events should be rewarded more for, you know what I mean? Like, where you get an automatic spot just because you top
Yeah,
5. I think I liked the top 3. I think the top 3 made sense. I mean, obviously, you can do really well and jackpot your home water, things like that. But I just think at the end, if you look at it, if they say you get the max and it's 45 people that get in on top 5 and only 20 people make it on AOI, and you're 22nd in AOI because you had a 12th, a 30th, and a 19th or whatever. I just feel like that speaks louder to me, somebody that's more consistent. Because like when you look at a 30th at a 200 person field, like that's still really
Impressive.
good. It's like I just I feel like we should be rewarding more of those people that are fishing multiple events versus just people jackpotting. You know, it's kind of like
Yeah,
you look on the boat side, the opens, like just because a guy goes and fishes one event and wins it, obviously he makes the classic, but he's got to fish the whole division. It's just I don't know. I think we should be rewarding those people versus just the top 5 for an
I
event.
I definitely see your point. My first thought when I saw it was kind of it was similar, but it was kind of the other way. I was thinking, well, shoot, if let's say I do well in a tournament where there's 100 guys, but then somebody else does well in a tournament with 200. Like I like the idea of rewarding more people based on the field size. But I definitely get your point that you could potentially adjust how most of the angler the TOC field is going to be stacked and fewer AOI spots. I'm just curious, like what it's actually going to look like in practice, because I think that I don't know, I just feel like the cream always rises, and a lot of the top guys are going to be they're going to have a top 3 to a top 5 throughout the year. So you're going to end up, uh, you're going to be trickling down quite a few places in overall angler of the year standing based on those guys that have that one or multiple top level top 5 finishes. So I'm curious to see if it really makes any difference kind of at the end of the
Yeah.
day. But I don't know. I'm sure Hobie has thought about that and looked at some numbers and stuff before they made the call. But we'll see.
Yeah. It's very intriguing, man. I don't know. It'll be see how it shakes out. And then again, this is just the outside looking in type of deal. And I'll be curious to I know AJ's been on some shows. We'll have to go back and I haven't had time to even go back and listen to him just yet. I think he was on KBN.
I believe
Um,
so.
I'll have to go give that a listen and see what information is out there. But nonetheless, some good changes, some interesting changes from Hobie BOS, and we'll see how that reflects on the 2024 season. But our premise for today's show, I got one more thing newsworthy here for people. Definitely our longest, news segment, if you will, of this year, almost 30 minutes in. But we wanted to give some winter fishing tips for you guys. But one thing I saw just now is interesting. I actually was talking to Jeff Little about it. Was this Boondocks riser? Was it the riser mount? The Groovy console riser kit mount? I don't know if you've seen that yet. I think Greg Blanchard actually had it on his new native Titan Next. Let me share screen, but
Okay.
it's basically a beefed up, especially with this popular people, using their mounts up front or both graphs up front. Um, Especially if they have 2 units specifically, but it's a beefed up little whatchamacallit. This example is a pro angler, but it establishes a much sturdier mount if you're going to use bigger units or you want to multiple things. In this example, if people are listening, it's a graph that goes across good grief, I can't speak. A mount that goes across the front of the pro angler that has 2 rod mounts. It looks like a Garmin 9. I think it's a 9 or a 10. And then another Ram phone mount. Jeff actually showed me an example of the back of his kayak. He had like a couple cup holders, different things like that. But like Greg Blanchard has 360 and 2 units on this. So for me, looking at it as a guy that runs a couple units and bigger units at that, like something beefed up like this is pretty cool. Something a little bit more sturdy. Where we have some mounts out there that when you put them on, with bigger units, you kind of get a little sketch to see, is it gonna stay on there or not?
You got a little bit of shake while you're.
Yeah, yeah. Where looks like there is not going to be any shake, but it's interesting from Boondocks. I'll put a link down below. We don't work with Boondocks or anything like that, but definitely thought it was worth sharing with you guys.
Yeah, it looks
Something we
cool.
saw. Yeah, Jeff Little shared it over to me, and might actually get my hands on one and try rigging up my units. I don't, for whatever reason, I could see putting live up there for me, but like I'm so actively on my graph when I'm mapping and try, like using side imaging and things like that, that I can't put that up there for
Oh, you
me.
got to have it
I have to
close
have it
by
right
where
here.
you. Gotcha.
I mean, because I got like freaking 7,000 waypoints. Like I'm always actively marking things and things like that and taking notes. So it's like I gotta, I can't have it up there and trying to reach over my feet and things like that when I'm graphing. But something pretty cool. Interested to see how that does with things. But nonetheless, let's get into our main topic for today. That is some winter fishing tips. I
Yeah.
think first and foremost, Justin, kind of fill the people in on what's most important this time of year.
Well, the first consideration for me is safety. Um, and I'll be the first to admit that I'm a little bit lazy. When the weather starts to get cold, I tend to maybe shy away from the water a little bit. Um,
Mm.
that said, I do get out there, and I've fished out there in some really cold stuff, and it's different, than in the summertime. I don't mind getting wet. I'll wade a lot of these smallmouth streams, but when it's when that water temp's down in the 40s or 30s, depending on where you live, you don't want to mess around with that stuff. You got to make sure you have the right gear. So that's kind of obvious. Have a nice warm, dressing in layers. But the other thing that I think is important is making sure somebody knows what you're doing, where you're going to be going, and sort of what your plan for the day is, your timeline. I feel
Yes.
like that's you know I don't worry so much about that, when it's nice out, but when it's cold, I mean, hypothermia can set in really fast, and it doesn't take but one little mistake, one little slip. You reach down for a fish, maybe you slip, and now you've got water all the way up to your arm. You're soaked. It just don't mess around. I mean, you can definitely get out there and enjoy it, but it's you don't want to be messing around with Mother Nature and tempting her. But kind
It's
of along the same.
yeah, dude, that big, that point of letting somebody know. Like when my brother was back in the state, I would have I always share a location when I'm hunting, fishing with my wife so that she knows. And she can see if I'm moving around, then I'm fine. She watches the dot move around. She knows I'm good. But like same thing with my brother too, just because like I know like if I'm in the woods type of deal, if anyone was to come get me, I could have full faith that my brother's going to be able to know exactly what to do, how to handle conditions, things like that. Obviously, he deserted me for Utah. But nonetheless, like having somebody that knows exactly where you're at, obviously, at the very least, tell them, hey, I'm going to be at this lake. If it's a bigger body of water too, tell them what portion you're going to be at. I'm launching here. Let them know. Obviously, being a kayak, there's not too far you can go. But definitely let people know, and if you can, especially people with iPhone, like share location, things like that. Maybe you find a trusted source that isn't going to take your waypoint, see your dot, like, wonder why it's all the way out there.
Yeah, they got
But
those places you can sell them now.
yeah, yeah, no kidding. Uh, my wife will charge you $100 if you ask her for that. But yeah, for sure, letting people know about that, and then if you can, I'd say fish with a buddy for
Hmm,
sure. Like
that's a
that's
good
one
one
of the
too.
big, yeah. Um, yeah,
Another one that I like is spare clothes. I don't worry about it too much. When it's warm out, you dry out, especially a lot of these lightweight fabrics that we wear anymore. It doesn't take real long for you to dry out. But wintertime, uh, like an example I gave where you just even just getting your arm in the water and getting it soaked, you're going to want to get out of those wet clothes. And that's what I'm going to be anytime it's wintertime fishing. I'm going to have a spare set of clothes. You can get the little puffy jacket that packs down real tight, so you have an easy way to kind of store a backup coat. You can strip those cold clothes or those wet clothes off, throw on something else, get a puffy jacket on, something to keep you from getting hypothermia while you're getting back to the ramp.
yeah. This is a big one that I do as well. I mean, when you're in the summertime, I mean, I'm always wearing like sun pants and a sun shirt. So you can, even if there's times where I will jump in on purpose because it's so hot and I'm dry within 15 minutes. It's not a big deal in the summer. But like anytime the water temps get like below 60, I have a dry bag that has a set of base layers, top and bottom, and then like sweatpants, wool socks, and a hoodie, and then and another winter hat. So if I do get wet, obviously if I'm able to get to the bank or at least get back on the kayak type of deal, I can strip down. Even people on the lake might not enjoy the view, but I can get down and I can get new clothes on. And it'll be at least dry. And the thing is too, with that, obviously you don't want to put on when you're soaking wet, put on a new set of clothes. So I keep an extra towel in that dry bag too.
Mm. One of
That's a
those
big,
tech towel deals,
honestly,
those lightweight.
just put a shower towel in there, but it probably would be smarter to
Works
do
too.
that. Yeah. When you got a PA-14, you get some wiggle room.
Oh, yeah, you got plenty of storage.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah. I
plenty of
always keep a
storage.
dry bag in there.
Smart.
But
Yeah, and then
I think
the
it'd be good too to have like an emergency kit with you. Obviously, that you could do the whole blanket deal, whatever. But I think extra like hand warmers and like warm patches. Like I don't know if you've seen those warm chest patches and things that you can do. Those are super smart. I mean, I wear those when I'm fishing and it's cold anyways. But those are game changers, man.
you could even do a little fire starter kit and get on the bank and get,
You can do the whole 9 yards.
yeah, I mean, you can take it as far as you wanna take it. It's nice having that pro angler. I'm a little jealous when it comes to storage space.
Yeah, no kidding.
But last point that I had with regard to sort of safety things, safety considerations, it's just knowing your limitations in general. Um, it's one thing, like I mentioned, being out there in the summertime, maybe I'm not worried about going 5 miles or 6 miles or further in a day, but I tend to reel that in a little bit. I'm not getting quite as crazy in the cold months. Last thing you want to do is go pushing the envelope after dark when the temperatures get even colder. Just know what your abilities are and don't do anything overly stupid out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Summertime's the time to be stupid.
Don't try something for the first time kayak wise when it's very, very cold. Obviously, if you're antsy and you got a new kayak and you want to try it out type of deal, go with friends. Go with a buddy. Go to, if you got a kayak dealer that's on the water type of deal, that's a different story. But don't like test out the stability of your kayak when it's 40
Yeah,
degree
yeah.
water,
Hey,
things
I've got
like
an
that.
ultralight. I wonder if I can stand in this thing.
Yeah. Don't do that. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, that's a great point. And that's one thing we talked with Christine was like, how she moves around on her kayak. Do you purposely go and get on your kayak, move around on it, try to purposely flip it so that you can understand that tipping point? That's where this comes and pays off. Is times where some people might feel pretty scared or dangerous about a certain situation where you might feel pretty comfortable. This is why I feel comfortable going out in the Great Lakes this time of year, because I know the limitations of my pro angler,
Hmm.
things like that. So it can help you in situations that might feel nervous or something like that, and give you some confidence in once in your ability, but also your kayak's ability to how it maintains and things like that. But with that, dude, I your point of when you get your arm wet, as anglers, sometimes we don't always use nets or we drop a rod in the water or something like that. Got a scuba type of deal. You can get your arm wet or your hands wet. Um, if you're not doing all scooping fish and stuff like that and using a net, um, I do love a fingerless wool glove, especially for keeping warm. I know like Sims makes a good pair, but honestly, those you can get for $15 at a Cabela's type of deal.
Yeah.
Um,
Instinct or something they're called, the little wool ones.
yeah, there's so many options you can do that are affordable too. Get multiple sets of them if you're especially going to go that wool route.
Yeah.
It's not a bad thing to have two or three in the kayak with you. Just put them either in the dry bag, put them in your tackle box, whatever, like your crate. Um, it's always good to have multiple sets of those because when they do get wet, it's not like you have to take them off and then you don't have gloves for the rest of the day. It's you got a couple backup pairs.
Yeah.
One thing I will shout out though is that I do run with Blackfish Arid gloves, and they're actually a waterproof set of gloves, and the fingertips are covered, which I know a lot of people don't like, even I don't like. But these, I'm able to use a bait caster like skip docks and everything with these gloves, and they're waterproof. And what's interesting is even when you put your hand in the water, they become warmer. It's very intriguing. But like, so if I'm wearing my rain suit has cuffs, and I use the glove and I put the gloves on and I have them cuffed at the wrist. I can go and then scoop smallmouth full arm in the water, and I will not get wet. what's super cool about these gloves. Obviously, it makes things a little bit slipperier, like when you're trying to cast and stuff like that. But like just an example of these gloves, it was actually a bass boat tournament 2 years ago, in November. It was like 18 degrees when we launched, and I was culling fish for us with those gloves, like elbow deep, in this live well, culling fish, and never once did my hands get wet. And even then, I still bring 2 sets of them just in case, because obviously it's always good to be prepared. But if you are looking and you're willing to use gloves that have like your fingertips covered, definitely recommend those. I think they're like $35 too, but they're legitimately waterproof. It's pretty legit.
And they stay pretty warm too?
Yes. I've never had my hands cold in them.
Hmm.
Obviously, like if your hands are in a long time in a live well, it's freezing water. Your hands will get cold, but like it's really interesting dynamic when you go back and start fishing again when they're more wet and dense. Like they don't feel cold. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. But I've had them to the point where it's like my hands are dry. Like I put out video about this actually. My glove was frozen because I put my hand in the river, the frozen Niagara River, snow and ice everywhere. Pull it out. My hand is dry. And then the time it took me to take my glove off and show people my hands dry, my glove was frozen. It's
That's
super interesting.
crazy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have
Uh,
to try those because I'm like you with I don't like, particularly for a bait caster. I like having my fingertips being able to have that feel, especially my thumb. And
yeah.
most anything that I find, I've just kind of resigned myself to sticking with wool. And then there's some companies that'll make ones with the like rubber grip on the inside. I like
Yeah.
that. Those are a little more expensive, I think, but after your hands are cold and you don't get that thumb release depressed all the way, and you haul off and throw your jerkbait rod into the middle of the lake.
Yeah. Yeah.
That that made me like those grips a
What
lot
is it?
more.
What is the monkey something?
Fish monkey, I think.
Fish monkey. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
heard
got a
they make
couple of
some really
those.
good wool ones. But definitely, if
Yep.
you're gonna go that route, I totally understand when people are like, "Nah, man, I need them to have access to my fingertips," type of deal when I'm fishing. But at least just get a couple pairs. If you're gonna go the pricier out of those fish monkeys, at least just have a couple backup pairs of cheaper ones, ready to go, because you are gonna get your hands wet. But
Hmm.
yeah. Um, are you a big Vaseline in your guides guy?
Yeah, I do it. It's I'm not out there too many times where it's actually freezing in the guides and I need it, but it makes a difference. And it's really annoying the few times that like I said, that I am out there and you go to cast and it just, that line, it beads up inside the guide, it freezes solid. You go to cast and the bait doesn't go anywhere. I hate that. I really, really hate that. You got to
Yeah.
stick it down in the water and shake it, and then when you get it out, you got to try and shake it so that the actual water comes out and doesn't bead. And then you get another couple casts, and now it's frozen again. You got to do it again. I
Does
don't
that
like it.
impact your casting at all? Or does your line get caught?
I don't think so. I don't. Yeah, I don't. I didn't notice. I mean, and if it did, it wasn't enough to where I wasn't going to do it, because it's so much more annoying to have the thing frozen and your line doesn't even have enough space to go through the guide because of the ice. So
Mhm.
I'll take the Vaseline. Um,
It
either
is
way.
almost 2024. We still can't figure out a quality way of keeping ice off our guides. We have all these fancy things in this world, and nobody can figure that part out yet.
Shoot, I'm assuming you've got a whole lot more experience dealing with that than I do, though. So I'm assuming you do the same thing, same trick.
I've done it. I just, for whatever reason, for me, I just don't like getting the mess off my rod afterward. So,
Oh,
like, to be honest, it sounds horrible. I just put my mouth on the line and just eat the ice off my line. It's stupid, but I just kind of like, I don't know. I just pull my line down, put it in my mouth quick. The ice melts, and then I
it's
just keep going.
like a little popsicle.
Pretty much, man. It's super weird,
Nice.
but nah. I mean, honestly, a lot of times I just if I backlash because of it, I put that rod away for the day and pick up something else till that gets all messed up, and kind
Makes
of just
sense.
roll with the hits on that. But um, So from a fishability standpoint, this time of year, fishing wise, not just the gear. Obviously, that was the important part. This is the most important part about winter fishing is the safety, but also being more prepared than usual. It's utmost importance of this year compared to any other time of year to be as prepared as you possibly can. Because just from the simple danger aspect. Um, but from a fishing standpoint, you know, targeting, like you have here like warm water discharges, things like that. Anywhere you can find where there's going to be some warmer water retaining is probably where the fish are going to be. When you
It's
when you
like a
think about it, it's like if you've ever been to an outdoor restaurant, we have them here where like our breweries still stay open throughout the winter and they keep the outdoor seating still open in the winter, even when it's snowing, because they have the heaters out there, the little like standing heaters by the table.
nice.
If you look at those, where's the congregations of people? Under the heaters. Same thing
Hmm.
with fishing. Find the warmth, you'll find the bass.
It's
They
like a
or
cheat
fish
code.
either way, not just bass.
Yeah, I'm always looking for if you get a couple warm days in a row to heat the water up, and then if I don't have that, I've been fishing. I think one of the coldest days I was out, it was in the teens. It was maybe, I don't know, 12. It was somewhere around, we'll say 15 degrees. And I was at a warm water discharge, and there's steam coming out of the water. I was just bank fishing, but catching fish, nothing big, but catching fish where the water is 60 degrees coming into, an area where, you get out of that little discharge area and get out towards the main river, and you're looking at ice chunks everywhere, or places where it's actually frozen over. But those warm water discharges, they'll hold a bunch of bait and a bunch of fish.
Definitely where you should be targeting if you obviously that applies to your fishery. Some of the especially us in the glacial lakes, we're sitting there like warm water discharge. What the heck is that? Like we don't have that here.
Do you guys have you found that you can do the same thing with springs, like underwater springs, that water's coming in at a warmer temperature?
See, I don't even know that I found or know that any exist on our lakes like that.
Okay.
I found them on like the TVA and things like that. I found springs and such, but I've yet to at least. I mean, there could be that I just simply don't know or see have found yet. Um, but usually for us, we go deep. Like that's just kind of we have these winter holes where shallow for us this time of year, unless there's grass still remaining. Shallow really doesn't exist much
Hmm.
anymore. At least up by us anyway. Um, but then again, there could be. I could definitely could be wrong in that. I just my this time of year, I'm 100% offshore deep with smallmouth. Once November hits and like the grass is almost dead, largemouth are out of my mind until about April. At least up here in New York, anyway. But
Fair
the
enough.
warm water discharges though, that's like I feel like it's more of like a your area, southern, any other place in the
Yeah.
country besides glacial
There's
lakes.
there's definitely some lakes and rivers in Virginia that have them, and, yeah, I don't know, for me, if you've got it, I definitely am gonna use it if they're there. Shoot, there's even some lakes where they've got like a nuclear plant in the lake, and it's not a water treatment, it's a, I guess I don't know if it's going through a generator or how the science of it works, but I know there'll be a hot side of a lake and a cold side, and,
Mhm.
you can fish the hot side, fish the hot side.
I mean, I kind of look at it, especially like a shallower style of fishing. I look at it just like spring, where I find the north facing banks or whatever bank's going to be getting the sun first thing. Obviously, in the spring, it's their north facing banks. Um, so it's just one of those. That's how I look at it. Is whichever side is going to be getting the sun first is the side that's going to typically have the warmer water. Um, so if there's anything approach wise, it's that. But beyond that, it's for me, it's just slowing down, and finding the winter holes. But the warm water discharge for thing, especially shallow or river systems, even just finding I think if you can fish current this time of year, that definitely helps out big time. But
Hmm.
but to wrap up here a little bit, let's for our winter fishing segment, let's give a top three this time of year cold water bait. Our top three approaches.
I
What you
like
got
it.
first?
For me, it's gonna be a lipless crankbait, and I cheated and looked at what your list was too. But I fish it very much like you fish one of your baits. It's not the time of year where I'm burning a lipless crankbait. I really like a yo-yo retrieve, just pulsing it, lift and drop, and I'm fishing it deep. Again, not the time. I'm not saying you can't catch them burning it, or with some different, just crawling along the bottom. I remember years ago, KVD won a tournament in the winter down south, just crawling a rattle trap through grass on the bottom. But for me, it's a lift and drop. And some of these baits now, like I think Strike King makes one that has a really nice shimmy as it falls. I like that bait a lot this time of year. And then Spro has one. I think the Aruka Shad.
Mhm.
It's similar but different. But I like both of those for that technique where it gives you a nice little similar to one of the baits you like.
With that, we'll just go right into what my bait is, and that's a blade bait. Pretty much the same dang thing, just one's metal and the other one's plastic. Um, yeah, same deal, man. Honestly, my favorite way to fish a blade bait this time of year, especially when I'm out deep, is when I'm on top of them. And I put it on a jerk bait rod and I just rip as hard as I can vertical, like right above their head as hard as I can. It's a very violent, like right off at the bottom. And typically, when you do that, it's once or twice if when you're on a school of them and your rod just locks up, like especially right below you. It's super fun. But same deal, man. You can cast that one. If I'm casting a blade bait, I like to actually go to a spinner bait or spinner bait. Good grief, can't speak. A spinning setup. So I have a light braid to light fluorocarbon. That way, when it's freaking 100 feet out there on bottom, especially in 30, 40 feet, I can still maintain that full contact. Whereas if I do that with 10, 12 pound fluoro on a jerk bait rod or whatever, casting that far out, I'm probably not going to feel that vibration when I try to lift and rip
Hmm,
that bait up. Whereas that
gotcha.
spinning, I can still feel that full vibration of the blade bait. But what's your second one, man?
Shoot, for me, number two, I'm gonna go drop shot. And I've had some days around this time of year, honestly, where in the past I've gone out with a drop shot, and I like a drop shot for like if you're fishing a pond or something with a mucky bottom. Drop shot can be nice because you can have your weight will sit there in that muck, and you can adjust the height of your drop shot, keep that little worm up high, and yeah, ponds, you get a couple warm days, that water in that pond, little small, farm pond or 10-acre lake or 15 or 20-acre lake, that's going to heat up way faster than a giant lake. So that's almost a whole separate tip in itself. Look for small bodies of water on a warming trend. That water temperature is going to climb. You might have some fish that are a little more aggressive, but for me, a drop shot, it's just hard to beat it. And you can drop on fish too. I'm lousy with electronics, but I just feel like that's a way to fish slow. It's a natural presentation, and it just gets bit.
Yeah. So I'll list off my second and third one here, and then we'll cap off with your third, just because simply I fish them in the same area and I fish them pretty much the same. One is a single swim bait, and what I do on that one, I like a football head on that. And typically, because what I'm doing is, and the one exception I'll say is I use a small ball head if I'm up shallow in grass for cold water largemouth. You can use the same for smallmouth, but largemouth, it's a great way just to creep that little swim bait up top of the grass. But most times of the year, cold time, like this time of year with a single swim bait, it's like a heavier football head with a little swim bait, and I'm counting rocks. I'm just slowly reeling that thing. One rock, two rock, three rock, like super slow. And then your rod just goes dong, and that they'll eat it. And I'm like I think the money size too is like a 3 to 3.25 inch swim bait for that. Um,
Little
but
bitty.
yeah, but with that, the second one is a finesse football jig. And that's the exact same thing. I'm throwing the same area out deep, small little peanut head. I love the Beast Coast owner open water sniper jig. Um, I put that one on with like rage chunk, or if it's real, if they're not eating that, but they kind of have interest, I'll even put a Ned on that little football jig. and drag that. And it's the same thing where I'm just dragging it, counting rocks. I'll count to like five rocks and let it sit for like 4 or 5 seconds. Start
Do
dragging
you
it slow again.
do you actually pay attention to which rock it was? Okay, that was the 6 count rock.
Yeah, that was a 6 rock.
You
Too fast.
you go and make sure you get to that same specific rock number.
I mean, there's definitely something with that though, like with tungsten being able to feel more. Where if I get into, I can feel a bigger rock. You can tell when you're dragging across it. You can feel if you're on like pebble, it's super fast, a bunch of bumps. Where if you get a larger bump and you can tell that you're coming over something bigger, I will open my bail and let my line sit for a little bit. And what I'll even do sometimes if they're being finicky is like when I feel I'm coming across a bigger rock, I'll put line slack or a slack in my line and I'll knock that slack, keeping the thing in place, but just like taking that jig and that rock and just hitting it over and over again,
I
and
like
kind
it.
of just like almost a dinner bell, if you will. Like, hey, I'm here, come eat me. That's kind of the idea behind that, but uh, definitely works this time of year. You can do the same thing with like a Ned rig. So, what's
I
your
like
third?
it. I'm gonna go curveball. Part of me wanted to say jerkbait, but I'm honestly not that good with it. I don't throw it enough. So I'm gonna like almost shift gears, and we got some guys I'm sure that are down in Florida where it's winter's a little bit different. But I've been in northern Florida where it's the temps still drop down to the 30s at times. And what I like to do down there, for me, it's hard to beat a punch rig. You put a cross style bait on there and just go find the thickest, nastiest grass and punch it. Uh, that's that's what I like to do. And I haven't spent a ton of time in Florida, but when I am down there, and that it seems like every time I'm there, there's a cold front that comes through. And if you can find that thick matted up grass, I feel like it's going to retain the heat. Even in the wintertime, you get those sunny days, that grass and that a lot of times that grass up near the surface. So sometimes you'll be punching and it's not so much, they're not eating it off the bottom. You can pull that bait back up and bang it, kind of like you're talking about banging the rocks. You bang the underside of that canopy, just
Mhm.
let it hit and just hold it there, drop it a little bit, hit it again. Um, I've caught some nice fish that way down in Florida. But yeah, Florida has winter too, and it's for me, it's punching time.
No fun at all. Zero fun.
No, zero fun.
Such a good bite, man.
When that braid screams and it's like you don't know if it's a 2 pounder or if it's your biggest ever. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I could do that. That's we've talked about it before offline, but I've it's very tempting to move down to Florida and just winter down there and then go
Mhm.
go somewhere like where you are up north for summertime and
Yeah.
and just have best of both worlds.
Becomes very, very tempting. That's for dang sure. Well, dude, then that caps off our segment here. Some winter fishing tips for you guys. If you have anything else you want answered, put it down in the comments or reach out on social. We'll happily answer them on the next show. Um, but for now, to cap off today's show, as you guys know, if you've been listening, we're getting into our kayak fishing kings and queens of the week. And we have two
Heck
here
yeah.
that Justin's going to dive into and let him have it, Justin.
Yeah, first, this one's a little bit overdue, and I honestly forgot about it, but my buddy Mark Edwards did something that I don't think has been done in West Virginia before. He won kind of well, I'll call it the Triple Crown. So they got 3 major trails in West Virginia, and he won all 3 earlier this year. The Angler of the Year specifically in all 3 trails, which is incredibly hard to do, incredibly impressive. Uh, I know they've got a bunch of local hammers out there, and then they've got some guys that fish the national trails that a lot of you might recognize. Jody Queen, Matt Ball. So to best those types of anglers across the season is very impressive. And the 3 trails, I'm gonna have to read them so that I don't booger them up here. But it's WVKA, West Virginia Kayak Anglers, also SWVKA, Southwest Virginia Kayak Anglers, and MSKA, Mountain State Kayak Anglers. So Mark Edwards, the Triple Crown AOY winner. Uh,
That's
yeah,
impressive, man.
yeah, overdue recognizing him for that, and I'm sure he's going to be mad. He doesn't like tooting his own horn, but I'm doing it for him.
Heck yeah. Mark's an underrated hammer and one that is very active amongst comment sections that I've seen for kayak fishing, but also just the sport in general. Pretty knowledgeable, very participative in regards to. We see him a bunch over on Serious Angler, so big shout out to Mark for being one of our kayak fishing kings of this week. But we got one more, and who's that, Justin?
I wanted to recognize Jim Ware. They had a what is it, Tennessee Bass Nation tournament on December 16th on Dale Hollow, and I've never fished that place. I've heard good things about it, but Jim put up 95.5 inches to win that tournament, and impressive. I had a chance to meet Jim earlier this year. Good dude. It was actually the night before the KBF the 10 tournament, and I should have been working on my gear, but I was having too much fun telling fish stories with Jim, so I ended up not getting a whole lot of sleep before that. But yeah, Jim's a good dude, and yeah, happy to name him one of the kings this week. And then also, I got to shout out that lake, Dale Hollow. Like, I mean, as far as I know, it's largemouth and smallmouth, but the top 6 in that tournament all had 90 inches in December. And the top 10, I think it took 87 and change just to crack the top 10. So it's I know there's a bunch of hammers that fish that trail, but that is an impressive lake that I might have to make my way out to one of these days.
It's impressive, man. I mean, as we talked about it with Adam Reiser a little bit on his show, but he's talked about how that lake is so good into winter. That's when it shines. And so it's super cool. Definitely on the bucket list. But congrats to Jim Ware. Congrats on the dub. I mean, like you said, top 6 all had 90 inches. It's impressive, man, especially at this time of year. But congrats to our kayak fishing kings of this week. And thank you to those that tuned in to this week's episode. If there's anything you guys want us to talk about, discuss, people you want to have a show, by all means, send us a DM, send an email, put it down in the comment section. We are all ears to that. And we are excited for the new year coming. Next episode of Kayak Fishing Weekly will be in 2024. And that's pretty wild. Obviously, for 2 months down into this show, hopefully people are enjoying it. We've absolutely loved the feedback thus far. Appreciate you guys. And Justin, anything to add before we wrap this sucker up?
No, it's been fun. Looking forward to talking to you some more in the new year.
Heck yeah. Well, folks, appreciate y'all. If you guys are listening, please leave us a rating and review. It is much appreciated. It helps us get shown more on these applications, which helps us turn around and make a better production for you guys. So appreciate it. Hope you guys had a great Christmas, and look forward to a very happy New Year. To say New Year. Y'all get the point. We'll see you in 2024. Yeah, that's right. Peace.